Hey, you know what burns my ass today, James?
What burns your ass there, Dad?
Cayenne pepper in my underwear. That really burns my ass.
Why would there be cayenne pepper in your underwear?
I don't know, but it burns my ass when it gets slammed.
When it gets slammed. That's so stupid. Hi, my name's James. You gonna be okay?
I might be. Okay.
He said his name is Les.
Okay.
Alright, welcome to Toxic Male Manifesto. Today, Dad's got a couple things that he'd like to share with you guys.
Yeah, actually, a few things. James has worked for me before.
Yeah.
And he knows that I have what I call my 3 rules. Okay? And the 3 rules are kind of important when you work for me, but what I started doing was when I used to teach carpentry school, I taught for Discovery College, and then after that I taught for Community Skills Center, and I used to teach carpentry and then entry to the trades. I taught welding and taught a few other things as well. Anyway, when I was there, I would teach all of my people the very first day, basically 3 rules, and if you stick to these 3 rules, you're always going to survive on a job site or you're going to survive in life.
You'll always
be
employable.
Yeah, basically. So my number 1 rule that I always tell people, and do you remember the number 1 rule?
Is it remember why you're here?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So if you always remember why you're here, like, what am I doing here? Like, if you're on a job site and you're not very happy with something that happened there, maybe you just got reamed out by the boss, or maybe you're having a difficulty with a coworker, or maybe you're not really liking the job you do as you're shoveling sand or doing some other shitty, crappy job. Well, you got to step back sometimes in your mind and you think about it. What am I doing here? Why am I here? Am I here as an apprentice because I'm learning how to be a carpenter from the guy that's standing there with the overalls and the suspenders? Am I here because I want a paycheck so I can go out with my girlfriend this week? Am I here because my parents will kick me out of the house if I don't have a job? Am I here because I'm just treading water and just putting in time until a better job comes along? It really doesn't matter why you're there, but if you always remember why you're there, then all the other stuff doesn't matter. Like, if I'm here for a paycheck and the guy next to me is being an ass and I don't like him very much, does that change my paycheck at all? No,
Not
I
at
still
all.
get paid.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm here learning how to be a carpenter and the guy's training me and stuff like that, but I'm doing a shitty job that I don't particularly like, does that affect my hours towards my apprenticeship?
Not at all.
Right? So, like, when you step back and you think about it, what am I doing here? And the same thing goes also for your activities. When I raced cars with James when he was young, right? We used to race for years. Well, I think we raced 3 or 4 years before we won very many races. I think we were lucky in the first 3 seasons to win more than 1 or 2, maybe 3 races a season, if that.
Yeah, we won our first races in our second year, and both those races were like, they didn't even have trophies for them. I got a medallion on our first win, and then I got a plaque for my second one, and then we didn't win another year.
Yeah. And when we started winning, but we never ever felt we were failures. We never ever, because we always remembered, like, what am I here for?
Well, we were there to grow and to learn and to get better, and we were there because we were having fun.
But we
loved it.
always wanted to win, too.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was the growing part, is we were growing to be winners.
But for me, what happened was, because I wanted to win, I never felt like I was a failure. But I always wanted to win. So I always remembered why I'm here. And what that meant is that I always had to work harder. Always had to find solutions to problems. We would come in second because something happened towards the late stages of a race. So I would pull back in the car. Okay, the car went through a heat cycle on the tires and we lost the handle on it at the end of the race. So now we got to work on how do we make the car faster towards the end of the race after you go through a heat cycle. And James, conversely, I'm pretty sure you were learning stuff too.
Oh, heck yeah. And so basically what you're saying is that no matter what you're doing, even if it's a simple task around the house, you have to remember exactly why you are doing it.
Sure. Yep.
Even if you're taking the trash out or sweeping the floors, you got to remember, well, why am I doing this?
Well, all those years, we raced 10 years. I probably spent, I'd say well over $100,000 in 10 years on a low-budget racing program. Okay, well, I'm not talking a big budget racing program. Those guys spent way more than that. But about probably $100,000 over those 10 years. At one point, I had all 3 kids racing, and what I always clung to and I always hung on to is the reason why I was there and why I kept on going back and why I kept on, even though we didn't win and even though we failed sometimes. Sometimes we wrecked. Sometimes the cars had got a DNF because something broke on the car. Sometimes, I was stretching financially just to put entry fees out to put the cars out. So, but I always remembered, what am I doing here? The reason I'm here is because my kids wanted to be there. Because my son loved racing, because my daughter and I got to develop a good relationship because we worked on racing, because my other son, who didn't race very often, sometimes he did, always needed an opportunity. I need my kids to have an opportunity. So I always remembered, why am I here? For me, it was the biggest part was the long-term picture. I wanted to build some children that would go out there in life and work hard, play hard, and know why you're a team, why you're going to put out effort. And, I'm not sure if I was successful, but I think I'm getting close.
I would say you're successful. I honestly think that what you did and what you sacrificed in racing is completely the reason why I'm where I am today and why I'm not on a skid row with some of the other kids that grew up with me.
Yeah. So, see, for me, that's the why. The why I'm here. And I can tell you, going through those years in the racetrack, we had friction with other people. There came a point at about 5 or 6 years that we were winning a lot more than we weren't winning.
Yes.
By the time we were at 7 years, we had a target on our back, and I think we probably won almost half the races we were in by that point. And, we were accused of cheating. We were accused of doing everything. They took our motors apart. They did everything they could. And I developed a lot of enemies, but I kept on going back. And I kept on going back because the why. Why am I here? I'm here because my son wants to be here. We thought at that time we were probably going to go on to racing bigger cars. When we got older, we did for a little bit. But that really wasn't why we were there. Why we were there is it's a character building thing. And it built character in me, built character in my son, built character in my other children that raced. Why are you here? So when you're on a job site, and you don't like what's going on, especially for young people, because it's really hard to look down the future, right? You're digging dirt, or you're carrying lumber up a hill, or you're sitting in an office and you're crunching numbers, the same numbers every day for 3 weeks, or you're punching a check out, or you're doing whatever. Why are you there? Yeah. You're there for one of those reasons: money, experience, so you don't have to get kicked out of the house, pay your rent. Like, why am I here?
And for most people, it's usually money. Money is the reason, or it's family. They're there because they don't want their kids to starve, or they're there because they need to pay for their kids to go and play hockey or whatever the case may be. Most of the time, it's family reasons or money reasons, but whatever the reason may be, you've got to remember why you're there and keep striving and have that reason push you. If you don't have a good enough reason, if you don't need the money, if you don't have a family to support and you're going to work and you hate it, then I hate to say it, you probably don't need to do that job. Go and find a better job that you like.
Yeah, I agree. I'm kind of lucky. I've tried to do other things. I went to university, got a college diploma in business, then I went and got a degree, and, I went and did those jobs. I didn't like them. Fortunately, I was a journeyman Red Seal carpenter, so I just went back to hammer and nails and doing carpentry. And I'm almost 60 years old now. A little bit longer in the tooth, a little thicker than I used to be, but I still really, really like building. So, it's kind of lucky for me.
And I know I'm kind of young to be saying these things, but I've seen it in my life now and lots of my friends. When you get out of high school, you should go and get a trade. Go and get a skill of some sort that you can fall back on, even if you were, say, I want to be a doctor or I want to be a lawyer or whatnot. Because say you go to school and your grades aren't good or you don't even like it, or if you're partying too much, you need to have something to fall back on. And I've seen so many of my friends that didn't do that, and now they're fucked over and they're working at McDonald's or Starbucks or don't even have a job. And I have other friends who did what I said, such as me, that's what I did. And now were able to fall back and they had something to land on instead of just being screwed over. I think it is so important for you to have a trade, even if it's only a first level trade. Like say you've got your first level of carpentry or cooking or of welding or whatever it may be. Even if it's a first level trade, it still gives you something to fall back on if you aren't able to achieve in that other field.
Well, it worked for me because when I graduated, especially the second time, by the time I graduated the second time, I already had 2 kids and another one on the way. And I couldn't find a reasonably good paying job using my new education. So I went, well, I can make good money doing carpentry, so I went back to carpentry. And that's a big opportunity. So what is your sister doing right now?
Oh, my sister, she's going to school to get her trucking license so that she can have something to fall back on for when she goes to school for computers.
Yeah.
To do graphic design and animation and whatnot.
She produces our videos and stuff, or at least she started, and she trained and taught James how to do it.
Yeah, she taught me how to do it, and now I do everything right from, like, I do everything now, but the first few videos, it was, she did everything the first video, and then she helped me for the next couple, and for the last 2 videos now, it's been just me.
But we're still using her equipment.
Yeah.
The camera there is worth more than my truck. So... Anyway,
that's why we're not buying our own camera.
Anyway, so that was my little spiel for the young people. That's something that's the kind of things that men do with our children. Is that we, like, I'm going to say this to men. Okay, if you want your kids to be athletic, if you want your kids to play music, if you want your kids to do math, you want your kids to do stuff in school. Get off the fucking couch and go do it with them. Yep. You know who runs with my 14-year-old son? I do. Now, I can coach him better when I'm running with him. Now, he runs away from me. So when we go to Campbell Valley Park, I can do 2 laps in time that he does 3. But I get to watch his running stride. I get to be with him. So I do it with him. When he goes to his swim meets and stuff, I go there and I swim with him. When I go to James to the racetrack and stuff, I go with him. I work with him. So what I'm saying to men, if you want to be fathers to your children, get off your fucking ass, get off the couch, and go do it with them. Take your kids up the grouse grind and don't send them up there. Go up there with them. Take your kids to play soccer and you don't send them, you go there with them. Take your kids to play hockey. Don't send them. Go with them.
Mm-hmm. Kids are less likely to do something if they're just sent to do it on their own. But if their parents or their father or their mother, whoever it may be, is doing it, they usually aspire to do those things. It's mostly a monkey see, monkey do kind of thing. And I know people look at that in small things, but it's big things too. If most of the time you'll see children will grow up and they will do the same profession as their parents.
Yeah.
They will have the same attributes as their parents, or they will have the same skills as their parents.
Well, some won't, because Joshua is going to be a mathematician, probably, or statistician.
You were big into those things.
Yeah, but I was also better with trades. But the other thing is if you want your wife to love you, and you want your wife to look at you, you should see what my wife looks at me like when I come back from the racetrack with my children. She should see what my wife looks at me like when I come back from running a 10K race with my son.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can still run a 46-minute 10K. My son at 14 is running a 35-minute 10K. And James was running a 29-minute 10K until he joined the military. So, I don't send my kids to do stuff. I do it with them. I'm almost 60 years old, and I've never changed. And if you want to have a good, successful marriage and you want your wife to respect you, then do stuff with your kids. I can guarantee you the payoff is magnificent.
Yeah, my girlfriend, she has a daughter, and I'll tell you, I've never seen Coral be more into me or be more intimate with me or love me more than when I spend a day with Vivia or when me and Vivia play around. Like, when I first started dating her, I noticed it when I would throw Vivia up in the air, or when I would play with her toys, or when I would read to her. Coral would be way more interested in me, and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. So I learned that I was like, well, Coral finds it very attractive, me being a good father, or me being a good father figure to Vivia, and it definitely is that. And I've seen it with my friends, I've seen it with you and Mom, I've seen it with everybody, is that women find fathers attractive. It is one of those things, and it is probably a primal thing, but it is definitely a thing. And if you are a good father to your kids and you do stuff with them and you help them to grow, they will find that super attractive.
Well, and the other thing that I'd like to say about this is my wife, if you ask her if I do 50% of the chores in the house, she would tell you yes. I can tell you, I don't do dishes. I don't do laundry. I don't vacuum the floor. I don't do any of this stuff. But guess what I do? I do things with the children. I do practice with Joshua. I take him to 5 o'clock saxophone in the morning. When my wife's car breaks down, I go out in the rain and I fix it. When the trees break or something, I'm the one that climbs up there and takes it down. I'm the one that goes and fixes the electricity when it does. I'm the one that fixes stuff in the house. I'm the one that goes when my wife goes to work and she says it was making a noise. So I drove to work today with my son, started it up, listened to the noise, determined what it was, and fixed it while she was on her job. So if you ask my wife if I do half the chores in the house, she would say absolutely I do.
And most people look at doing half the chores as you do the dishes every second day and I do them every other day, and that's not really how it should be done, or how it has to be done. I guess it can be if you really feel like it.
Well, it would only be fair if I had to do the dishes every day, every second day. Then that means that she has to change the oil in the van every second time. Do you think she would do that?
It's usually better when you professionalize in something, and I think one of my biggest heroes with how he does things is Henry Ford. And the Henry Ford ideology of having the system where one guy does one job and that's all he does forever and ever and ever and ever is the best way of doing things.
That's a little bit boring now. Who wants to put on...
Okay, maybe, of course on one thing, but like if you do only the...
Yeah, I do mostly the stuff
and that's how it should be. Most people look at it like, oh, I've done the dishes 100 times. Why don't you do them once? Well, working on the car is just as important as doing the dishes. And doing the dishes is just as important as building a fence. Like, it is a give and take kind of thing. And it doesn't mean that my girlfriend has to come out and build the fence with me. And it doesn't mean that I have to go inside and do the dishes with her.
Well, that's true. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing. That one's kind of been beaten a little tiny bit.
Like a dead horse?
Yeah, kind of. Anyway, we're probably going to come back to this one because this one's near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, what's that?
But anyway, next thing I want to talk about is I'm really not understanding why feminists are not absolutely going wild about transgenders. Like, it just makes me like, I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Why aren't you saying anything about this? Why is it only, the media says it and stuff, and I've seen that news and stuff, and like, here's a prime example. There was a high school track meet not too long ago in Connecticut. State high school indoor track meet at Cromwell High. Okay? It was won by somebody named Andrea Yearwood.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody named Terry Miller of Bloomberg High won, or Andrea Yearwood finished second. Terry Miller won the thing, and he set a high school state record. Now, did you catch the heat? This is girls running, girls sprinting. Both these boys are transgenders that are transitioning into becoming a female.
So
they both still are males.
Are they taking hormones?
Or yeah, the article didn't say, but it does.
I've read into it, and I know a little bit more about this article because this is kind of old news. It's about a month old now.
Yeah.
They're not taking hormones. In the high school track and field, they don't have any guidelines to how much of a transgender you have to be in order to participate in the opposite sex's competitions. All you have to do is claim that you're a woman. Both these boys still have their penis. They still have all the testosterone they were born with. They don't take any medication whatsoever. All they do is have long hair and wear a skirt.
But because they're 17, by the time they were 16 years old, boys have bigger bone structure. They have larger muscles, larger
They're
organs,
way bigger than the other
everything.
girls.
And when you see the pictures of these boys, they are substantially larger.
They don't look like girls.
I don't know if anybody remembers the MMA fight between Fallon Fox. She was an MMA fighter, and she beat a woman named Tamika Brent to the point where she almost died. She got a concussion, split her head open. We're talking in one round.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Less than 2 minutes and 30 seconds. She beat this woman unconscious and beat her and split her head open. She ended up with stitches and stuff like that. Here's the interesting thing. Fallon Fox is a transgender. She was a man who beat the shit out of a woman. Excuse me, why is the feminist movement not going ballistic on it? So one of my biggest female heroes in sport. In my opinion, I think she's the greatest tennis player ever to play.
What about Serena Williams?
Well, I personally, I think Martina Navratilova, because of her longevity, and I think she had more talent to play against.
Serena Williams beat Martina Navratilova almost every time.
Yeah, but she was old by the time Serena came up. Martina Navratilova came out as a lesbian in 1981.
Yeah.
I don't even think Serena was born yet.
Okay, I might have her confused then.
Okay, anyway, so Martina Navratilova came out in 81. Recently, just before Christmas, she came out and she was talking about how it's unfair that transgender athletes, get a leg up and get an extra advantage, and that they're dominating in a lot of sports. And she mentioned a few of them. Amongst some of them was wrestling, some were distance running. There was a cyclist, really, really big time. She's a Canadian, by the way. And she's also a PhD. I can't remember her name, but anyway, she's a cyclist and she's cleaning up on short tracks and stuff, indoor cycling in the States.
That great?
Anyway, well, she's a man.
Yeah.
And Martina Navratilova is talking about how men have bigger bone structure, more density, we have testosterone, we have a bunch of other stuff. And even then, when they start getting the transgender stuff happening, like the hormone therapy and stuff like that, that doesn't take away the fact the bones and everything that you did for 17, 18 years old, your great growth, doesn't go away. You are still bigger, stronger, faster. So men's are now dominating. So she got ripped. And that's in that article I sent you. I sent you an article. He's going to post it. Mm-hmm. She was ripped sideways by the, and called transphobe and attacked verbally and stuff. So basically she withdrew her tweets, said what I'll do is I'll go and check and I'll do research more. And she got bombarded with all kinds of pro-trans information and stuff. She read what she could, did her research, came back out again a couple weeks ago. And she's come back and she goes, my original assertions, I was right. And it's funny because here's Martina Navratilova actually saying, okay, I'll go and check. And she came back and she says, I also deplore what seems to be a growing tendency among transgender activists to denounce anyone who argues against them and to label them as transphobes. Have we heard that actual argument anywhere else? Maybe in climate change, if you actually happen to dispute something they tell you that makes you a denier?
Oh, yeah.
Well, isn't this the same thing? So it really, really looks to me like any kind of speech that, and it doesn't matter what it is, right? But any speech that disputes the left's view of what we should have is wrong. Mm-hmm. Now, we have a lesbian woman saying transgenders shouldn't be allowed in women's sports. And I really believe the feminist movement should be stepping up and saying, yeah, that's true. Because there's going to come a day that every Olympic sport is going to be dominated by transgenders.
Yeah, it's going to be only men. It's going to be men on the men's side, and it's going to be men on the women's side. It's just going to be the lesser men on the women's side that decided, I'm going to go chop my penis off and compete on the women's side.
Whatever it is, not even going to look at the motives of why somebody would do that. What I'm saying is that it is unfair and unreasonable for women to have to compete against men in sport. It's just, it doesn't happen. And I just have to wonder when it's all going to happen. I don't think it's going to.
Yeah, I honestly can't believe that the feminists don't see this as a feminist problem, as something that they should be tackling with their movement, because this affects women greatly. Like, big time. Now you're going to have your heroes that these little girls are going to be looking up to in hockey or in track and field or in cycling or in wrestling. They're going to be looking up to these heroes and be like, I can never obtain what they are doing. I could never be that good because I wasn't born good enough. I wasn't
born a boy and I can't change into a girl.
Yeah, they're not going to have heroes to look up to. They're going to have nobody to look up to, so you're going to have little girls that should go into track and field because they are good, that are going to choose not to because they're like, well, there's no reason to.
Well, there was two little girls that were at that track meet, and both of them lost a spot in the nationals track meet.
They finished 7th and 8th.
One of the girls actually went forward. I don't have her name because she's a minor and they didn't put it there. Well, one of them actually was quoted, and she said, I am not going to get to go to the national track meet and be observed and watched and scouted by national universities and national teams because 2 men took those top 2 spots. And she said they were men. When you look at the pictures, they were 17-year-old boys. They look like men.
They are men. They still have their attachment. I mean, their equipment attached to them, which is still even.
I don't even
worse.
care about the equipment. Honestly, the genitalia and stuff, I don't care.
Yeah.
They're bigger, stronger, and faster. They're full of testosterone. Steroids are not allowed in sport, so you can't take steroids. Well, guess what? I got steroids in me that come because I was born a boy. Women are not allowed to have.
There is an argument that trans people have that there was the fastest woman ever was is like 2 100ths of a second faster than even the next closest, which is quite a lot. Or sorry, she's 2/10 of a second faster than the next closest, which is by quite a lot, and that's in the 100 meters. And she was born a woman, but she has a higher level of testosterone in her body because of some disformity that she has, and is able to run a lot faster than the other women because she has such a high level of testosterone. And lots of people are saying, well, she was born that way. Why isn't it okay? And these other transgender women, they were born with higher levels of testosterone, and it's a little bit different, I think, because she has a medical condition that she was born with. She had no control over. These transgender people, they have control over
she was
this.
Born a girl with better abilities than that.
She had no control over that.
Does that mean that Phelps, because he had bigger hands and bigger feet, should have been disqualified?
Yeah. And that's
he
the only
didn't do
argument.
anything illegal to make that happen.
And that's one of the only arguments I see trans people using. And I have nothing wrong with you being a transgender as long as it doesn't affect what we are doing. If you want to change society because you are now becoming a woman, and if you want to change how we are doing things, then that is a no-go. And I don't like it how people are trying to... Another big problem with the transgender art community, I think, is that they're trying to get their gender changed on their licenses and changed on their birth certificates to now affix to what they are as a gender now. And that's crazy because say you get in a car accident and you get knocked out and they have to do some medical surgery on you and they can't wake you up. All they have is your birth certificate that says you were born a man, and now they do surgery on you and you're missing pieces that you are supposed to have as a man, and they do surgery on you that is specific to a man.
I'm pretty sure a doctor could biologically look at you before
they could figure it out, but maybe...
Yeah. I don't think
it is... To me, I think that you need to have on your birth certificate what you're born as because it is so specific.
I don't really care. Put it on your birth certificate, whatever you want. Go ahead. I don't care.
We can...
we can disagree on that one.
Yeah, we're allowed to.
But for me... you don't get to participate in sports and call yourself a man. Ever.
Maybe they should, in my opinion, maybe they should have their own Olympics and their own competitions, much like how they have the Paralympics, and they actually have something called the Gay Olympics, which is where gay people go and compete. Maybe they can have their own thing, but I don't think that they should compete in the opposite gender that you were born. You have to compete in the gender that you were born into.
I agree with that one.
But there is another problem that's happening too, is that women that are born women are now transitioning over to men, and they're using testosterone and whatnot.
The transition, and they're actually competing. There's a female
and they're still competing
in that's still competing in female wrestling because they won't let her wrestle against the boys, and she is whooping butt.
So my opinion is that if you're transitioning either way, you shouldn't compete in sports in any of the normal genders because it's just not fair to you. It's not fair to the other people that are competing. It is not fair at all.
At the very least, this is a discussion that we need to have.
Yeah, I agree.
It needs to be a frank discussion where one side doesn't get to silence the other side because you're transphobic. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
There's more than one opinion in everything here. You're not a denier. Let's have a frank, open discussion. Let's look at the facts. Let's look at the evidence. For me, the evidence is overwhelming. It's not fair to women. Anyway, that's what I have to say today. So, no Tool time today because we did a big Tool segment. So,
yeah, we if you would like, we have our last video uploaded actually was Dad's Tool of the Week. We call it Les's Tool of the Week, and it's him building a speaker box.
Four speaker boxes.
He shows you one though, and he's got to always bring in. I built 4. So he shows you building a speaker box, and he shows tips and tricks and how you should properly cut and whatnot. I think it's a very interesting video, and I think it's important if you all would watch it if you have any interest in doing any handyman types of things. There'll be more videos like that to come. When the weather gets better, I'm looking forward to start working on my cars, and I'll be uploading videos about me working on my car.
Yep.
And I have an engine swap that I have to do on my Plymouth, so I'll video all of that, and I'll have that up on here. With that being said,